The sulfur cycle is simply the process of how sulfur moves and circulates through the biosphere and geosphere in different forms. All living organisms contain sulfur, which is an element among several amino acids. It has a significant amount of proteins in the soil until it becomes sulfates through microbial modifications, which then the plants can use. Sulfur is discharged through the weathering of rocks. Then it will combine with oxygen, allowing it to become sulfate. Plants and bacteria absorb sulfate, and once animals eat plants, the sulfur will move up the food chain and then it will be released once the organisms decompose. While many bacteria can slightly reduce sulfur, other specialized bacteria can fully depend on sulfur for respiration.
Before we dive deeper into human actions and their impact on our biogeochemical processes, let us first talk about one of the Earth's reservoirs, flora. Flora is defined as the name given to collective plants or plant life present or used to be present in a specific region or period of time. The word flora is derived from the Latin name Flora, which is the goddess of plants and flowers. Flora is a symbol of nature, flowers, and fertility in Roman mythology. Additionally, flora can be classified through regions, periods, climate, and special environments. Flora functions as natural apparatus that contributes in both oxygen production and carbon dioxide absorption. Plants are significant to humans, both as food and oxygen resource. Each plant and animal in the world brings something to the environment that another plant or animal, including human, will rely on. This creates a balance of life that enables the life cycle to survive. Lastly, flora is connected to biogeochemical cycles as these flow through various forms from the non-living to living components of the ecosystem.
Organisms rely on biochemical processes. To live bio means living, so biochemical refers to the chemical processes that occur in all living things. A process is something that occurs in a series of steps and has inputs and outputs. So for example, you could consider the manufacturing of a smartphone as a process. The steps in the process would include its design, manufacturing, marketing, distribution, and finally being sold to the consumer. The inputs of these processes would be the electronic glass and plastic that are used to manufacture the phone, and the output, of course, would be the completed phone. Biochemical processes are similar in that they occur in a series of steps and have inputs and outputs. The inputs of biochemical processes include biomacromolecules, which are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. The output of biochemical processes include altered biomacromolecules and inorganic waste. The steps in biochemical processes vary depending on which process it is, but there are several steps in between the inputs and outputs of the processes. So, for example, photosynthesis is an example of biochemical process. The inputs of the process include carbon dioxide and water. And of course, the outputs of the process are oxygen, which in this case is considered an inorganic waste product. And glucose, other examples of biochemical processes include digestion, cellular respiration, protein synthesis, and cell division.
Now, what is the effect of nitrogen in flora? If nitrogen levels continue to rise significantly, it may cause severe alteration and changes in terrestrial ecosystems because excessive nitrogen eutrophication, which occurs when too much nitrogen drains from the soil and enriches underground water, resulting in excessive plant and algae growth. These plants are affected by nitrogen, which causes a harm effects to the persons, plants, animals, which loss of overall biodiversity. And lastly, excess nitrogen in the atmosphere can produce pollutants such as ammonia and ozone, which can impair our ability to breathe, limit visibility, and alter plant growth. When excess nitrogen comes back to the earth from the atmosphere, it can harm the health of forests, soils, and waterways.
So, what are the effects of sulfur in flora? Sulfur, like nitrogen, is a vital ingredient for crop growth. It is often linked to each other in biological process, both elements from inseparable team. However, if sulfur deficiencies were fairly rare 20 years ago, they are commonly encountered today due to the drop of sulfur dioxide emissions. Hydrogen sulfide quickly oxidizes to gases that dissolve in water for sulfurous and sulfuric acids. Sulfur has become a main concern of agriculture today. Sulfur cycle is important for the functioning of proteins and enzymes in plants and in animals that depend upon plants for sulfur. Plants absorb sulfur when it is dissolved in water. Animals consume these plants so they take enough sulfur to maintain their health. On the other side, sulfur has also negative effects such as it eliminates insect life and some fish species that increase acidity of the soil, which can lead to slow growth of vulnerable forests.
Scientists use the word anthropogenic in referring to environmental change caused or influenced by people, either directly or indirectly, also known as man-made or human-related activities that causes harm to the environment. Humans impact the physical environment in many ways, like overpopulation, pollution, burning of fossil fuels, and deforestation. Changes like these have triggered climate change, erosion, poor air quality, and undrinkable water. Anthropogenic process types are defined as being intentional or non malicious human activities. Examples include groundwater abstraction, subsurface mining, vegetation removal, chemical explosions, and infrastructure or loading.
As we progress, our world has been seeing many changes caused by human activities that disrupts the balance in our ecosystems. This balance is crucial to maintain the flow of life of the both abiotic and biotic factors of each ecosystem. Tackling the effects of both nitrogen and sulfur to our world's flora, different challenges arises from the increase of these chemicals which remain uncontrolled and when left unattended can cause permanent damage to our ecosystems. Having this issue in our hands, it is up to us on how we can return the balance and avoid catastrophic events that can change our ecosystems forever. We can aid to this situation in the smallest and biggest of ways. For once, the spread of the kudzu plant that produces nitric oxide can be reduced by mowing down patches of these plants, hand plucking, or even the use of herbicide to prevent further spread of these plants. This is also the case in the Chinese wisteria, in which to prevent the spread of these invasive and harmful plants, one can cut them through their roots to stop them from sprouting again.